All right, so yeah, call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. Time is 6:42 p.m. We have a full quorum once Susie logs back into the meeting. Are there any additions or modifications to the agenda? I'm not.
I'm sorry, I wasn't. I was slow hitting the unmute. Could we quickly talk about the terms and how many commissioners we'll need and what that process will be?
Yeah. Happy to. I'm happy to talk about that. I'll second that. Any discussions or comments with adding an agenda item of discussion what's it who's signing back up or who's running again for commission terms?
I mean, not even that, but just to have an understanding of how many positions will be open and what the city does in general for posting that information.
No doubt. I do know that there will be 4 spots. Myself, Stephanie, Shireen, and you all. Our terms all end. Not sure who's signing back up or not. And yeah, I'm happy to have a discussion. So with that said, I'll second that. Any further questions or comments? All in favor of amending the agenda to add this discussion, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. I guess we'll tack that on to 6.04. Awesome. Moving on to, any other further additions or modifications to the agenda? I'm not hearing any. I move to adopt the amended agenda for the meeting. Do I have a second? Seconded by Stephanie. All in favor, raise your hand to say aye.
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 That passes unanimously. And I'm curious, Shannon, I think the phone number in the attendees is Susie, but let me double check. Yeah, that's her phone number. If you want to promote her, that'd be great. Thank you. All right, moving on to approving the minutes of our last meetings. We have 2 minutes to approve. One from our regular commission meeting on the 22nd of February, and approving the minutes from the special police commission meeting on the 23rd of February. I'll entertain a motion to adopt both minutes as is.
Move to adopt.
I'll motion to adopt the minute. Seconded. Any discussions or comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the 22nd and the 23rd, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Susie, are you able to try? Are you able to? Technically, it's going to need a roll call vote since I can't hear Susie right now. I'm in favor. Stephanie?
Yes.
In favor. Mila?
Yes.
In favor. Kevin?
Yes.
In favor. Shireen? So no? Yes. And Susie? So that is 6 yeas and 1 abstention from Susie. All right, moving on to public forum. Does anybody Shannon, did anybody email you with a request to speak?
I received no emails.
All right, thank you. If there's anybody in the attendees that would like to speak for public forum, please raise your hand and we'll promote you to a panelist so you can participate. I'm not hearing any. I'm not hearing any, so I move to close public comment. And I'm sorry, Shannon, would you mind also promoting the ASCOM referred as well too? I think one is for visual, one's for speaking.
Yeah, so I've tried twice to promote her, and it's not either. She's not accepting the promotion. Oh, there she goes.
Yep. Awesome. All right then. Moving on to agenda item 4.01, which is a discussion with BPD's Community Support Supervisor, Ms. Lacey Smith. Lacey, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lacey. I'm the Community Support Supervisor with the city. I work at the Burlington Police Department. I apologize now if you hear the occasional toddler scream. My 13-year-old is trying to do his best in watching him currently. So with that, I first would like to say thank you for all the support that you all have provided and are very vocal about in terms of the community support liaisons. I am just so grateful to have them. They're just amazing. We have a good team of people. There's 4 of us total. And so really the 2 additional positions would be helpful in terms of just expanding our hours, as the need for just our response. Oh, gosh. You have some feedback. Okay, so it would allow for us to go basically past 6 p.m.
I'm so sorry, Lacey. Could everybody mute their stuff except for Lacey? Awesome. Thank you so much. Apologies.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, right now we work 7 days a week, and we are from basically 7:30 to 6 p.m. And the 2 additional positions would really allow for us to work basically longer into the evening and have an additional person over on the weekends, because right now there's just 1 of us. So outside of that, the program itself is like we get used every day, multiple times a day. We have a lot of discretion to be able to dispatch ourselves. So if we see something come in as a group, it really is as simple as us going over to a supervisor and just making sure that we're on the same page, that this sounds like something we can respond to. Priority 3 calls, assuming that it's, not an accident or something that a community service officer would respond to. We have the ability to just self-dispatch without supervisor approval. It's really the priority 2 that we kind of will powwow about. And those are like certain welfare checks. Like today I did one, and also talking with a neighbor who is struggling with someone that lives across the street who is using like on the porch. So like that would be a drug call. So we would be able to respond to something like that, because there really doesn't too much in the way of public safety concern there. So I think it's moving along pretty nicely. There are times where there's a need and we are all kind of busy doing our things. So yeah, I think the additional support would be really appreciated and will quickly be working once we have them, if we get approved to get them. So I'm going to move along because I wanted to give 2 other additional updates, and one was really going to be on the RFP that the city has posted around what they're calling the social service mobile team. I think I often refer to it as the mobile crisis team, just because I think it kind of explains a little bit more as to what the intention of the work is. So that RFP has been posted for public comment on the city website. It is open, it'll be up until April 1st, and then proposals will be due by the 15th. Any questions and comments and clarifications go to me, and then the proposals will go directly to the mayor's office. But from that process, we started to work with a group called RTI International. They are a nonprofit independent research institute. And so they were in touch with us in regard to really wanting to work with cities that are at the ground level of creating a CAHOOTS-like program. Because even though there's a lot of this going on nationwide, there isn't research in regard to just like how effective are what we want it to do, does it do it effectively? Is the cost value what we think it is? Anecdotally, we have that, but it's never really been studied. So RTI, we've been working with them for a few months now, and we are one of 3 participating cities. Vallejo, California, and Durham, North Carolina are the other 2 that are participating in the research project. And so we will also have access to looking at how other departments are bringing this or standing a program like this up, because some of them, we're all in different stages. So it's really an incredible opportunity to be able to be a part of something like this and learn from other communities, and also really try to understand that are we being as effective as we hope we are being in terms of really targeting interventions with a different response. So that's like all I really have with that, because it's still kind of in process, like I said. I have not had any questions, comments, or clarifications yet from the public, but it's still a ways away, a little over a week away before we would have to respond to answers or answer questions. So does anybody have any questions with just that alone? So otherwise, I'm just going to move along to the mental health summit update. Go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's possible to reach out to maybe back up and say, do people generally go to the mayor's website just to sort of look around and see what's there? Because I'm wondering if it might be helpful to send out something, I don't know how you would do this, but to the general community to say, this is up there, please take a look, and we'd love to have your feedback.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about, Chief, do you know if it's been, I think it's just the website itself is through CEDO, I think is how you get to the RFPs or HR. Oh, Shannon, go ahead.
So burlingtonvt.gov/RFP, and all of the city's requests for proposals are posted to that webpage. I can certainly send the commission the link, and it can be distributed to, if you know some, or if you want to send it to some people, maybe that would be helpful. I'm not exactly sure though, like how the RFP is distributed to other places. I just post it. I'm not quite sure on the other side.
It's really only posted at this point for vendors. It's not posted for comment. The comments that would be directed at Lacey would be from prospective vendors, prospective respondents. There was talk of a public comment period that did not happen, and there were legal reasons for it not to happen.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying there's lots of nonprofit organizations around who may or may not know. So it'd be nice if they had better access, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that it has been shared with, directly with some nonprofits that we would think would potentially have interest in it. And that was just kind of more targeted, like we would like, and those conversations also existed in terms of like speaking with those entities around the development of this. So even before the RFP was put out publicly, talking with the various nonprofits around just input as to will this fill a gap and how, and really looking for input in terms of like, it doesn't meet the need. And so, yeah, I think there was some targeted outreach, but I know globally, I don't know if there has been.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the Mental Health Summit. So I met today with some two folks from the RAIB office as well as the United Way. And we are in the process of putting together the Mental Health Summit that has been kind of birthed out of the resolution that you all put together. It's really in the beginning phases. We are, United Way has an initiative specific to mental health. So this really kind of aligns with their priorities. And we are really envisioning this meeting as just being the first of ongoing. Like what we have going on with in regard to our mental health system and the stuff that needs to change is really not going to be resolved in one summit. So we don't really see this as just being a one-off. We see it as to like, this needs to be just the beginning of it. Really hoping that it kind of becomes and takes shape similar to the way that ComStat did, or working it into, that's the type of response that we actually will need in terms of trying to move the needle on some of the issues that we have around just the various gaps and capacity issues that we have in the mental health system. So with that being said, that's really, they're hiring a backbone person, which is really kind of an administrative position in the collective impact world. We call it a backbone. And that person starts next week. And so we're going to be meeting pretty much weekly to put this together, but we don't have an exact date. We are shooting for in May, and that's really with like some positions leaving the city, others coming on, and kind of the and really the desire to want to make this something that will be meaningful and really kind of start to rally the troops around the longevity that this issue will need to actually try to address the stuff that's going on. Okay. I also am involved like tangential to the pod project that's happening over on Elmwood. The city did speak today around the hiring of the new position. And so I will just say that the woman that they've hired, her name's Sarah Russell, she's just a wonderful person who has been doing the work for quite some time. And I'm just so glad that it's her. I was involved in some of the hiring for that. So it's just, she's going to be a fantastic addition and really knows the subject matter, the folks that are involved, and really kind of gets it. So with that position being filled, I think we'll see a lot more kind of fast tracking of all the stuff that's going to go on within the city. And I foresee the CSLs being involved in that world. Really, again, just around filling gaps. And I'm trying to really have folks, especially within the city, understand that like the pods, in my opinion, the biggest advocacy point is really going to be, again, about filling gaps. Like we can't just recreate a low barrier wheel that we've already have. We need to be able to kind of be a little bit more person-centered in our approach and individualized around how we try to address, because the people that are still out there, it's not really for lack of, there is capacity issues, of course, but it's going to be a more individualized individualized approach that's going to get them to engage. It's not going to be like, we have to be flexible, and there really needs to be kind of this willingness to have boundaries, have rules, but also like, work outside the box sometimes to be able to meet a need. So more there, more yet to come as well. Any questions? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thanks so much, Lacey. I have a series of questions for you, actually related to the CSLs. So I just want to clarify, is it true that there are 3 CSLs right now and that you have the permission from the city council to hire 4? Can you explain that piece to me?
I didn't. So I was under the impression that we had the 3 were approved up front, and that they were 4. Yeah, I'm the 4.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah, so we're a team. I really like I think of the supervision piece as just being like the admin. Like, they're my team. I don't, it's weird to think about them as being superior. I'm not. I need them just as much as they need me.
So can you speak to what you shared with me with regard to weekends and nights in terms of coverage? Am I correct in understanding that there really isn't much coverage on those times? And that's where this would be, these 2 additional CSLs, well, in general, would expand your capacity?
Yes. So right now, both the CSLs and street outreach, because they're like, the other folks that might respond to some of the things that we would respond to, we all are kind of ceased to be working by 6 p.m. So like any sort of, but that doesn't mean, obviously, as we know, noise still happens and people are still outside. And as summer comes on, there's going to be like, and there's more daylight hours, the need of just like being able to respond to not just mental health stuff, but just the other things that come into the department is just going to grow. So having an extra body, the 2 CSLs I would envision would be working, really kind of coming in later in the day. So maybe more true to a second shift. So starting in like, early afternoon and going to like 9, 10 p.m. And then the weekends would be the same. We have 1 CSL on now, but again, things kind of cease around 6. And we'll also pay attention to data. I mean, I think we do, and that's how we, right now, why the CSLs kind of are scheduled the way that they are is just looking at calls for service and volume. But I think as we kind of grow and the department shifts and we kind of see how we can use the CSLs with, especially priority 2 calls where like it really kind of is very situation dependent. There just will always kind of be this need for one of us, just even if it's just one of us, to be present, to be able to respond to just the things. There isn't enough people at times to respond to the number of things that are coming into the department. And so if we are just one more set of people that work with the department to be able to not have to have people sitting and waiting for a response, even for really low level things like, illegal dumping, having someone they might have to wait for, hours versus like one of us being able to deal with it, or waiting until the following day to even talk to somebody about it. If it comes in at 7 at night and, there's not an officer available. So yeah, I think that they're just, again, we're here to fill gaps, everybody. And I think that we know that there is also a gap at the department in terms of just officers. And so while we work to kind of build that capacity, again, we just want to be able to help take some of the load off of them as well.
Great, and if I might just ask a follow-up question. GPR had shared with us about the Crisis Advocacy Intervention Program, the CATE program. Can you help us to understand institutionally all the pieces and how, and the RFP for these additional services, how that would interface? So maybe you could just give us a CAPE 101.
Yeah. So CAPE comes up basically, the social services within the department have existed for some decades. But we all have been kind of popcorned throughout the department. So with the creation of the CSLs, it felt really like a good time to be more intentional, as there's this intersections, of course, with my team and us, but we also have the victim advocate, Mary McAllister, and we have the domestic violence police officer. And then the Community Justice Center has an employee that works within the department, and that is the Victim Services Specialist. And we all, and our part-time data analyst, we all sit in one wing of the building together. So it allows really for way more kind of obviously like organic intersections of the work, because we all are working a lot of times with the same people. So CAPE just kind of came from that. Just the understanding that like we're already doing the work, but we might as well kind of just be intentional of having us all in the same wing. And people, just for the public's perspective, the services that we often offer are not, we do preventative work, the CSLs especially, in terms of like doing the follow-up that's necessary and really digging in with folks around how do we actually address their needs. But I think that I lost my train of thought, sorry. It's the need for, so okay, anyways, I'm just gonna leave whatever alone. I forgot where I was going. So the way that this other team, the RFP, where how that would intersect is really kind of, I think, in the same way that we work with street outreach. Like street outreach is in the department every day. They come to our roll calls. We are routinely in contact with them around regular, or the people that really just triaging around whose relationship, who has what, and who would be the best to respond. There are definitely things the CSLs address that that street outreach doesn't address at all, just because it's outside of the scope of what they do. But I would see that this team that we're talking about creating, that they're fully mobile, that they are really kind of based out in the community, out of a van, functioning really more on the go than anything else, not really being stationed in any one particular place. And I do think that we are looking for a service provider. So I think that depending upon what that entity actually is will also play into if they're going to have a stationary kind of brick and mortar location, or if they're truly going to be just in a van. The proposal speaks to them having a van though, and that really being that their work is based out in the community and just kind of really bopping around town and finding the people and spending time and doing what it is that really some of the upstream work when they're not in really kind of active crisis response mode. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thanks. That was great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. I wish I knew where I was going. I'm like, sorry.
Happens to all of us.
So I'm happy to answer any additional questions if anyone has any. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say that really part of the intentionality of having a CAPE exist is really around around getting the information, making it easier for people for the public to access, and for there to be really, people don't know that we're there until they need us. And the department knows that we need to do a better job at getting people the information before they actually need it in a crisis. And the more that they know that it's there ahead of time, maybe the more we can kind of the more peace of mind, or it's less stressful for them in the moment, whatever it may be. I think it was really for people to know that we do exist, because one of the things that I had always consistently heard from people was that, like, I didn't even know the police department does this or did this. And so that's why that was part of the intention behind CAPE too, is really just putting a name to what it is that we all do. And so the public knows how to find us.
That's helpful. Thank you. That's great.
So I haven't got anything else unless, yeah, go ahead, Susie.
It'd be really great if we could have some kind of a newspaper article, either in the Digger or in the local paper here, or 7 Days even, to talk about these different strands of the mental health system coming together and explicating what they actually are. Because I would tell you, probably the average person on the street has no idea.
Oh yeah, no, they don't have clue. And I talk to them all the time. And I think for most people, it's like, again, like you just kind of are in your world. You're living your life, and it's like you don't really even realize that this is something that you might need until you need it.
Exactly why it'd be good to do that.
Yes, I know. So it is, and I do think the department is going to be doing more in terms of public, just knowledge and information sharing, and really trying to get the information out, because there is a shifting in how we do business as a department, and that's going to continue to evolve as the summer comes. So I think it's more important now for the community to know that there's other ways for people to get help with issues that are outside of the scope of public safety, but have always just gone to the department.
Sooner the better.
Yeah.
It's good work.
Summer's coming. So
summer is, oh, I'm sorry, Susie, were you done?
I was very done. Thank you.
Summer is coming that's just truth. And this is all a part of community engagement. And I think there are things that we should definitely be doing. I mean, for sure, asking Digger in 7 days, but really there can be some coordinated media outreach. And then also, I think we as a commission need to, we kind of brought it up before, but everything going on with COVID, I think as we look at more in-person meetings, whether we're going to be going back to in-person, do we revisit possibly going to different locations again? And I think we should look at, as a commission, some of us have been invited to NPA meetings, but maybe we need a regular presence on NPA meetings and just some other things. I think maybe we need to start, when we talk about our agenda at the end of the meeting, we need to be having just a line item for community agenda and starting to be more proactive about getting information done. Because if our staffing levels for sworn officers isn't going to be met, and so we also just need to continue to educate people on the other options that they have, and then educate people on things they can do in terms of the community, supporting community members directly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions while we have Lacey Smith here with us?
I could think of 10 more, but we'll leave it at that.
Well, feel free. I mean, I'm always happy to talk offline anytime. I mean, and I'm really, yeah. So just feel free to reach out to me. I'm really happy to take the time to have longer conversations. Obviously, I mean, us that do the work could sit and have conversations about it all for hours.
Thank you.
Well, we very much appreciate having you here. Thank you for these updates and good luck with your continuing work.
Yeah, and I would be happy to, like, as things progress, because that's what time does, but progress happens, time goes on. I'm happy to come back and kind of continue to give updates as we grow, because good growth is happening and it's worth sharing.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 5, which is the chief's report. And with that, we give the floor to Chief Murat.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. May I screen share? Okay.
I'm glad I'm not the only one having technical challenges. I feel much better now.
I was partly waiting for a response that I could, but I am working on it right now. All right, thank you. As always, the incidents are at the start of it, just so that people who are seeing it online, once we post it, can go over the incidents and know what incident categories we do and don't track. Here's a quick picture of our incident volume for the year so far to date. So each of these numbers is their respective year and the to date. We're a little higher than last year, but we are still lower than previous years. Again, the majority of that decrease, as in just over 50% of that decrease in each year, is the result of traffic and foot patrols and the diminishment of traffic and foot patrols. We've stacked 12% of the calls so far this year. That's a little down from where we were by the end of last year, about 15%. So I think that says something about where we are right now with overall volume. It's a thankfully not extremely busy time of year, but it's getting a little busier. You can see here that we are on track a little bit above last year, but not approaching the previous years yet. And maybe we won't. But again, priority 1 remains very high. And in this particular instance, at this time of the year, it's the first highest or second highest of the past several years. Uses of force are flattened out this month, but they were on a trajectory I didn't particularly care to see. But there is a certain amount of noise in this category. And so you can have varying years that can change rapidly as far as which one's high or low. And we do have good progress on the front of our digital media redaction specialist. We posted that job, we have gotten applications for it, and we are reviewing those. This is our current sworn head count. And the current sworn head count is 64 total officers, and of those 58 are effective. So from that 64 total, we take out 15 supervisors, 13 detectives. There's an asterisk there because that includes 3 supervisors among those total 13 detectives. 8 at the airport, an asterisk there as well, because that includes 1 supervisor among those 8 at the airport. There are 3 on long-term military leave, 3 on injury leave, 1 domestic violence officer, 1 recruiting officer, 1 officer who's currently in field training and is therefore not effective, 1 at the Vermont Police Academy who is therefore not effective. And so again, we go from 64 to 58 effective. What this means, unfortunately, is that the total number available for patrol for the Uniformed Services Bureau, non-supervisory on Uniformed Services Bureau, is 24. That is less than 50% of what our normal numbers are for patrol in the past, where routinely it's 52 to 54 officers, non-supervisory officers available for patrol. This is, I think, an interesting slide that talks about recruitment and retention patterns, which are going to be very important in the coming year and years as we seek to implement a recruitment program. The mayor has asked me to prepare one. I have shown him drafts. We are working on other aspects of it, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to make that public soon. But these patterns show us a little bit of what we are up against, which is a historical pattern of only growing once in the past since essentially 2015. There's only been 1 year where we have had more officers in than we have had out. Now, some component of that is purposeful. When we are staffed and when we have a budget, we are attempting to keep at that budget, not necessarily to grow beyond it. And you have to be careful. You can't hire more than you are allotted, but we've never been at a higher number than we've been allotted. Again, if we look at this slide, even when we were allotted at 105, we were never at that number. We always hovered a little bit below it, but would bounce up and down. Still, never able to get more than 2 in means that for us to grow by as many as 20 to 25 officers over the next 5 to 10 years, that will require extraordinary years compared to the past history. Furthermore, our retention is a component of that as well. So it's not only about the inflow, it's about making certain that the outflow gets minimized. Preferably, you want it only to be tenure retention. You only want officers to leave when they have actually hit their 20 and are prepared to retire. That's not what we see. We see resignations prior to retirement, and we see a significant number of them. Some of them happen in the police academy very early in an officer's career. Others happen at different stages and for different reasons. Obviously, that has been far more pronounced over the past 2 years. What we see here is on the right side of the screen, there are 2 columns talking about recruit hires and the number of recruits of those hired, how many are still employed as of today. And then there's also a column, for lateral hires, officers who come from other police departments, oftentimes out of state, and how many of those officers are still with us today. And both of those are things that we're going to have to really dig into. We want to make certain that the recruits that we are hiring are recruits who are going to make it through the police academy, who know what they're getting into and want to be in that police academy, and have the drive to see through what can be a very arduous and difficult process, and then have the drive to actually see through our field training process as well. And yet that drive cannot be compromised by diminishing standards. We're always going to lose some from our recruit training. It's just the nature of the training regime, and the fact that some people find out during the process that this is not a profession for them. With regard to laterals, we want to be able to bring them in and retain more of them. We want to make sure we're attracting people to this department who know what they are getting in the department and have a desire to come along with this department as it grows and changes in ways that are, frankly, at the cutting edge of the profession, and that are indicative of a department that sees its role and its mission of serving its neighbors differently than perhaps the places from which they've come, and want that. That's why they are coming here. This, of course, I like putting this up simply because I am posting all of these publicly, And I want anybody who happens upon them, whether they're happening upon the chief's presentation from March or from of 2022 or from October of 2021, October of 2022 or March of 2022, I want them to see what we're offering. We are offering that $15,000 hiring incentive. We have a very competitive salary. I'm hopeful that that will become even more competitive and stronger once we see a negotiation for the new contract, which is in progress. And we're hopeful for a lot of things to come from that contract, including a package that makes us even more attractive to both new recruits and to lateral officers. We have seen progress already. We have 2 new probationary police officers currently on staff. One is in field training, one is attending the police academy. But in that same time frame, since October of 2021, we've unfortunately lost 7 non-probationary police officers. In keeping with what Community Support Supervisor Smith talked about, we are building other capacities. We have a total of 7 community service officers currently on staff. We are working to hire at least 1 additional, and potentially, if workload justifies, 4 beyond that, for a total of 12 community service officers. That was the full build envisioned by the Public Safety Continuity Plan. We have 3 community support liaisons, and that too is less than the support than the Public Safety Continuity Plan envisioned. The Public Safety Continuity Plan envisioned a total of 6 of these positions plus a supervisor. And so getting to that, I believe that the commission is very helpfully, and we are grateful for the commission's advocacy on expanding that CSL role and the CSL position and the number of CSLs that we have. It has been an incredibly successful endeavor. I'm really proud of having worked with Lacey to create it, for working as we are to integrate it into what the department does, watching as officers gravitate towards it with regard to recognizing it as a resource, so that every morning officers are leaving emails for the CSLs. I went to a call. I could not really see the call through to fruition. I did what I could in the immediate moment and rendered people safe or addressed the needs as best I could, but can you help in this way? And they do. They follow up, they engage, and they give a service level that officers can't, and fill a gap that previously was not being bridged. So it's really, really terrific role. Very, very proud that we have been able to implement that in a way that is innovative and useful. And the question now is, can we, if expanding it, start to do some things along the lines of co-deployment? Those are processes that were envisioned by the Public Safety Continuity Plan. The Vermont State Police is having some experiments with that right now, having at least 1 victims or crime advocate or mental health worker at each barrack and allowing a certain amount of co-deployment with that. So we're going to be looking at what other agencies are doing, talking with others, and others are talking with us. I've had long conversations with other police chiefs. I think, for example, and am scheduled to have additionals with other police chiefs. I know that while I was away for the last police commission meeting on vacation, you spoke with Chief Hardy. She and I have been in contact both before that invitation that you gave her to the commission meeting, but also afterwards to talk about modeling some of what we're doing with other agencies like hers. I have been seeing what other agencies are doing well. There's some innovative things in Montpelier. As I said, the Vermont State Police are working on some programs. There's a lot of sharing and learning by others' examples right now, as well as innovating in ways that are unique to Burlington and to the Burlington Police Department. So those are some discussions of where we are sort of numerically and the stats that we have. With regard to other things going on in the department, we've had a good month in the time since the department saw you last. We did a swearing-in ceremony last week for those new community service officers and also for recruit officers who are police officers. And we are working on, as I said, some issues around recruitment and retention, plans around that. We are working on some plans around deployment. We are going to have to alter our deployment posture this summer. There's no avoiding it. We do not have sufficient resources to cover the city in the same way that we have when we are down more than 50% on patrol. And so we will be talking about new deployment plans and how we wrestle with that and serve parts of the city that clearly need that kind of service, and where do we focus resources, what we have, on the issues in front of us. We are also working on some new ideas internally around morale. Shannon has been working to get photographs of everyone so that we can have some art on the walls and have that. I've been in contact with members of the Queen City Police Foundation and some funders around different kinds of trainings that can be brought into the department around morale and mission setting and visioning. And we also, of course, are working with the city administration on other kinds of training, including the race training that will be mandated for the calendar year of 2022, and as well as trainings that are required at other levels of Vermont law enforcement, including our patrol procedures, et cetera, all of which we are working to make sure are as robust as they have been in the past, even though we have fewer resources. So that balance is a challenge. When we routinely have 4 or even fewer officers on patrol, how do you pull officers away to train them? And those are sort of logistical questions that we're in the midst of asking. With regard to other issues, I think we had something of a death in the family. There was a gentleman who has worked for years around different parts of Burlington, and particularly at Beansy's Bus, which parks in our parking lot, or not our parking lot, but in the parking lot next to our building between us and the park every summer. And Beansy's Bus is a sort of mobile restaurant that stations itself. A gentleman named Alan Aiken, who worked for the bus and was a director of traffic and a police supporter and somebody involved at the Sarah Holbrook Center and somebody involved in a lot of different places. We received a welfare check call and found him passed, and we are working with his friends and family, such as it is, to try to honor him in a way that is in keeping with the role he played in this place. We saw him every day. He was a fixture here at our headquarters and a kind, good soul and a jovial presence. And I know that I'll miss him every morning as I would come in, and half the time when I'd see him at night as well. So we're working on a lot of different things in a lot of different ways right now, and trying to keep up with the overall volume of work, which we believe is going to increase a lot as the summer comes along, even as we are getting to stages where we're frankly stretched thinner and thinner, owing both to absolute headcount, but also the degree to which we are running our engines on all cylinders with the officers and resources that we've got remaining. I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner Comfort.
What I know historically that from a past commissioner who served for, I think, 8 years or so, but way back, maybe 15 years ago or so, that it's historical that Burlington police are sort of sucked out of the police department to go to other departments where there's less activity and better pay or whatever. What is the possibility of doing the reverse, trying to bring people from sitting positions in other police departments into Burlington Police? Because we're never going to it's going to take forever if they have to go through the police academy over and over and then do field training. What is the likelihood of that happening?
Well, so that would be the lateral positions that we talked about. We really can't take them from other law enforcement inside the state. It is unlikely we will get them from others. And I think DC Lebrecq, who has more longer institutional knowledge than I could certainly clarify, I don't know that we have always been a place that people have left. We've been often in the past a place where people have gone to because they have seen, I'm sorry if there's an echo. We've been a place where people have gone to because we have had an agency that had more career opportunities, a greater number of roles, and we've really brought people in. getting people from in-state is going to be a real challenge. People in the profession look at this department and they see the city and the challenges that we've had over the past 2 years, and it is not an attractive package for them. And so in-state recruitment, lateral recruitment will be unlikely. We will work on it. And again, a good contract can get can clear some of that hurdle. But our better bet is to be able to bring people in from out of state. They won't have to go to the complete academy. They'll have to complete a lateral training regime, which takes over the course of a year, but it's pieces. And it's not going down to the police academy and being there for 17 months. And their field training, it has to be as long as our current field training, but it can sometimes be a little bit quicker, and they certainly get to pick up on things quicker if they have been successful police officers in other states. That's our best bet. But I do want DC Lebrecht to be able to weigh in on sort of the inflow, outflow, and how it used to be.
So yeah, historically, when I started, there were 6 of us that went to the academy, and we were 6 out of over 300 applications to the department at that time. And we were the 6 that made the final cut. And historically, yeah, our officers go on not to even to other departments so much as that they go to other departments either out of state or they go to the federal government, DEA, ATF, those types of areas, because we were the premier law enforcement agency in the state. I would go, when I went down to the academy, I saw people that unfortunately, didn't make it through our regime, but did get hired by other departments. And, it was us and the state police. We were the 2 agencies that had almost always the most applications because we had, a ton of stuff to offer. You had our detective bureau, you had our narcotics unit, you had our canine unit, we had a bicycle unit, we had the Chittenden unit for special investigations, which we actually, Burlington helped form and start. We had all these opportunities, and officers would go there, and we'd occasionally lose an officer to another department. And the thing is, they go to these other departments and they're rock stars. And that I agree with what the chief said. We are not that. We are no longer that department. The departments that we used to, if we did get people, we would take them from, are the ones that are, for lack of a better word, like now it's kind of, I guess some, I don't want to say payback, but I'm sure they're taking a little bit of, I don't know what the word would be, that we have kind of fallen off our pedal. Yeah, thank you. That's exactly the word.
It's Schadenfreude.
That we have fallen off our pedestal. And that really just leaves the state police. That's why you certainly do. They have way more options available to younger officers, and it's a catch-22 with the low head count. One of the worst things that could happen to us is if we had to actually start removing or taking detectives back, like the newest detectives back to the road. And, really that's the only thing we have left right now that, that has any avenue of other than working your entire 20 or 25 years on the road, taking calls. Our canine unit's down to 1 handler right now because we can't afford to have someone go to the canine school this summer. So hopefully in the fall, we'll be able to promote someone to that position and they can go to the narcotics school. And hopefully by next summer, we'll have enough head count that we can send them to the patrol school. But that's
it's time wise and resource wise. When he says afford, it's not a cost issue.
Yeah,
it's not a cost issue in the sense of not having taking a person away from the road for that length of time. The same is true of other things we used to do. Bike units. It takes 2 weeks to do bike training for police officers, and we can't afford to take officers away from radio response for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be years. Realistically, to build back up to 87 or so officers, and hopefully when we get to that point, as soon as we can expand and start adding some of those things back in, I think it'll catch momentum and it'll be kind of like a snowball rolling downhill. But right now we're kind of pushing the snowball up the hill to get to the top, and it's just there's no easy fix. There's just no quick fix to any of this. We had 2 in the academy, and because I told you that last time, well, one of them decided on the first day that it wasn't for them, and they've left. So we now have one in the academy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mila, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Are we tracking why people aren't making it through the academy?
Are these meetings open?
Yes. Well, yeah. When we always take, you know, the why they leave. They do an exit interview, and what they, you know, found that they liked or didn't like, or some people find, you know, a lot of times that what they find out is halfway through that the profession itself is just not for them. I would say that was a good majority of the ones that people that don't make it through the academy, and they're honest with themselves. And I actually appreciate that, that they are able to say, you know, it's not what I thought it was going to be, and this isn't the profession for me, because it really can, you know, it takes a lot of time away, you know, from their lives. And if they make it into field training, but it's not really what they want to do, you know, then you have field training officers and all that other time and stuff that's invested in it. In field training, most of the time, you know, I would say the ones that don't make it through field training, it's usually the amount of just tasks that the officers are required to do on a daily basis. You know, we require a lot from our officers because of the volume of calls and how busy we are. And a lot of them find that pace is just, it's not sustainable for them. You know, in field training is 14 weeks, but we go out of our way to extend them. You know, I think the longest we've extended somebody is 20 weeks or 20 some odd weeks, you know, trying to help them work through, you know, the issues that they're having. But I would say a lot of the times the ones that leave from field training, it's just the sheer volume of and the pace of work that we are required to do in a busy city. A lot of them, you know, when they leave too, we'll actually like know that if they were in a different city or a municipality, we'll reach out to, we have some officers that didn't make it through field training with us that we've called other agencies in smaller towns, and they flourished there. That was more of their pace of policing that they were looking for. So I would say if you had to look at the two big things, one in the academy is just the profession is not what they thought it was going to be. And then the other during field training would just, for us, would be how busy and how much, you know, work is required by them, and it can be overwhelming. I hope that helped.
Thank you. Have the city and the department looked at targeted recruitment for lateral placements?
That's a component of the proposed recruitment plan. It will be a component of that. In the past, there have been efforts in various ways with various levels of success.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of miscellaneous items regarding incident statistics. So I wanted to get some, you know, in terms of reviewing some information on the CNA report, I was trying to isolate information for stats associated with the airport, and I wasn't able to come up with anything. Do you keep statistics for the airport? And if so, can those be provided? Or just give me advice of exactly how I should be searching for the airport? Like I would go on and I would just, as opposed to selecting all incident types, I would just select the airport and literally nothing comes up for month after month after month.
You would most likely want to put in the address, 1200 Airport Drive. And, you know, most of their responses are either out front for parking, minor crashes in the parking garage, and when the TSA or one of the counters activates their duress alarm, that means usually it means a passenger or somebody they're feeling threatened or something, or they're afraid a situation may get out of hand. Those are the three, I would say, the three main jobs that calls for service that the airport gets. and the other would be, they are responsible for being at the gates and also for patrolling the airport side of the airport, not the National Guard side. They have their own, but they do regular patrols in a vehicle around the perimeter of the airport and that type of thing. They do write tickets, I guess you could say, for air violations. If someone's speeding or something, those tugs that pull your suitcases to the airplanes, actually in that area around the jets, they're only allowed to go at 15 miles an hour or less. So that's if they drive too fast. We've actually had officers back in the day that would use one of the laser units to see how fast they were going, and they would get a ticket. Or if they don't secure their doorways, usually it's some sort of type of security violation around not using their badges that allow them into secure areas correctly. So a lot of the work they do is not something that they punch a card for, but it's a good point. They probably should punch or start a card for more of those things.
A complicating factor is that the radios are not reliable at the airport. And as a result, you can't call dispatch in order to start or end the call for service when you're on it. So there are a number of things that they're also required to do on a daily basis with regard to federal law and the TSA, and a combination of both the requirement to have the same number of officers as there are gates open, and an officer at each gate while it's open, as well as a requirement to have not just requirement, but the memorandum of understanding with the TSA. TSA has no arrest powers, so they can't use force, and they can't do certain things that police officers can. And in fact, airports have to be controlled by municipal officers, not federal officers, and not by the TSA. So by law, there has to be officers available in order to back up TSA if and when they find X or Y or Z, whether that is criminal or whether there's any kind of resistance or violence on the part of people traveling. And then, of course, there are also issues once off the plane. In the air, it's generally a federal issue, but once off the plane, it becomes the issue of the locality where the plane lands, and you have to have local law enforcement to deal with those kinds of situations as well, of people disembarking in ways that are not entirely either not voluntary or are not entirely safe.
Because federal officers can't enforce the state laws. That's the reasoning behind that.
Okay, thank you for that information. A lot of it I already knew, but I definitely think it's very helpful for the public to be aware of that. I guess I'm curious in terms of where is the activity with regards to what they're dealing with up there. I would really like to see that information. So are you saying I have to put in that specific address in order to bring it up in the data portal?
If I guess I'm thinking about it. If you ran it in our Valcor system, that's how I would run it. Run it by the address of the airport. I don't know how the portal, I guess, Chief, you're probably better spoken to what the portal will show.
Jono Larson is on, and Jono may be able to say the ways in which that can be tracked on either the dashboard or the data portal.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Jono. I'm the data analyst. Milo, are you using the data dashboard on the burlingtonvermont.gov website?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So and if you're using that dashboard, it sounds like what you're doing is you're selecting the airport like call type in order to search for calls that the airport officers might be going to. Unfortunately, there isn't a way with the dashboard to search for the location of the airport or the location or neighborhood of incidents. And I think a lot of times when airport officers do enter a call into Valcor, they're not necessarily giving it that airport call type. So that is a limitation of this dashboard. We do post information about all police incidents to the open data portal, which is at data.burlingtonvt.gov. And so unfortunately, it's a little bit more difficult to use because the data is in just sort of like table format. But if you do use the data at data.burlingtonvt.gov, the area column has the different BPT areas there in it. And so you can look for airport in that column. And that will, any incident that happened at the airport will have airport listed under the area column. So it's not as easy to use, unfortunately, but it is a way to get at any police incident that happened at the airport.
Okay, so you're saying search by area.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Maybe we can chat about this directly, because I want to be able to see. There's been a lot of questions about the airport. So I just want to be able to see that information and direct other people, who ask these questions, like exactly how they can see that information. I assume that it's summarized in some way. I mean, outside of requiring an officer for each gate that is opened, tracking peak times of activity, that would be something that the department does. Is that correct, Chief?
Sorry, I'm sorry, what?
So what I'm trying to have an understanding is how you're looking at incidents at the airport in order to track staffing at the airport.
So let me just help clarify. Even if the officers went to 0 calls, by federal law, we have to have 2 officers present when the gates are open and when people are planing and deplaning. So even if they went to nothing, by federal law, we have to have them there. Just an FYI for everybody.
I understand that, and thank you for the additional clarity. So everyone does understand that. But in terms of actually knowing what they're working with for like I've had personal questions about it from community members, and it is something that I've been wondering about when looking at certain sections of the CNA. So I'm just, how are we, like, what if that number isn't enough? So we know what the federal minimum is. What if that number isn't enough? How are you tracking to determine that number's might not be enough?
Well, technically it isn't enough because they actually consider the area behind the counter where they take your bags and stuff like that as another checkpoint. So we are actually getting by right now by just, they're not really, no one's saying, raising a kerfuffle about, the fact that we just have officers that are able to respond to each of the concourses at this time. So, if in a perfect world, we'd have enough officers that, we would actually have one that would be able to respond to both gates and to that area right behind the counters where the baggage goes back, because that is a screening area. I'm sure everybody's seen that's flown out of there. They have the machines that screen as well. So technically we are not quite following the federal guidelines or regulations, I'm sorry, that are laid down.
So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult.
No, it's a hard, fast rule.
Right. No. And I appreciate that. I am just trying to have an understanding. How is their activity being tracked, and how can someone see that information? Like, I would assume the department would be looking at that information somehow.
There's a supervisor assigned to the airport who is able to monitor what's going on in workload and does share that workload in supervisory meetings insofar as saying, we're having these kinds of conditions or these kinds of incidents at the airport more regularly or less like regularly. When buses began letting off there again after the pandemic, there was an uptick in, for example, calls for service around issues of houselessness and mental health. They deal with the same kinds of things that can happen downtown. How is that tracked? Again, it is tracked in our Valcor system. We can use the address of the airport for those incidents that do end up with a Valcor incident. But for the most part, because the radios don't work, there are a great number of incidents that don't get tracked in that way. And because Valcor is the way in which we track everything, that is the system we use, like it or not, and to greater or lesser degrees of efficacy. That's how we determine what is happening out there and incidents, et cetera. If they make an arrest, it's going to have a Valcor number. But if they are called by the airport ambassadors, for example, to deal with a person who may be publicly intoxicated or having some kind of episode, if they go to that and then deal with it themselves without calling downtown, for example, to a CSL or to street outreach, both of which do happen, then there may not be an entry in Valcor for it. If they are forced to recall, if they have to call dispatch directly and say, can you send a CSL up here or a street outreach worker up here, then there will be a Valcor incident logged for it. We have talked with the supervisor in the scene about having a new system for, at the end of the day, sort of tallying up different kinds of calls that were done, even if they can't be done direct by radio. But that's something that we're working on.
Okay, so when the supervisor gives his report, then he doesn't, they don't have a, it's not a report based on actual data. I guess what it sounds like is an issue where there's incomplete data. And is it possible to have something generated out of Valcor by that address to see what has been submitted?
Yes, an address search in Valcor would be able to show what has been submitted. It will not be a complete picture.
Okay, and then so just to clarify, it sounds like you're trying to make steps so that you have a more complete picture?
We want that. We want to be able to understand what is, what occurs at the airport or not. There are arguments that the airport needs to be staffed better, both DC Lebrecht's argument, but also the fact that the nature of the overtime that's done at the airport is indicative of the fact that they're understaffed, because an entity shouldn't have to have as much overtime as is done. In past years, until this most recent year, when a sergeant has done a huge amount of overtime, in past years, there have always been officers at the airport who are our highest overtime earners, because they fill in for themselves and they basically are working the equivalent of 1.5 to almost 2 officers of work. And that's because we don't want to have to send officers from downtown up to the airport on any given shift in order to fill in a blank there. And as a result, the officers at the airport generally fill in for themselves and for each other and do what used to be inordinate amounts of overtime compared to the rest of the department. The rest of the department, unfortunately, has caught up a lot owing to the staffing issues downtown now. We want to know what they're doing and understand that better. That is a component that we're looking at. Valcor is a dispatch incident system. They are generally not dispatched to jobs. They pick up jobs based on calls for service within the airport or things that they observe themselves, or the mere necessity of them being on what is equivalent to a foot post. And as a result, it doesn't get into the system in quite the same way.
Okay. I was wondering if you could add to your monthly report information about what comes into the tip line in terms of how many calls come into the tip line. I understand that they're not actual incidents, so they're not included in the incident reports. But given the amount of drug activity in the community right now, I'm curious as to the number of calls that are being submitted through that option that the community has.
Yes, we can add the tip line to the chief's report.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I wanted to talk about morale issues, but actually, I'm gonna leave it there for now, just in case anyone else has any other questions or concerns. Thank you.
Just real quick, just real quick. I ran the numbers just from January to now. There's been 28 incidents that are associated with the airport. Most of them, there's a stolen vehicle, vandalism, accident, usually the parking garage, mental health issues, a lot of agency assists, a few intoxications in there. But a lot of them are just assists, agency assists probably to other departments or TSA. That seems to be the majority of the ones that the cards or the incidents that were started by the officers out there. That was just a FYI.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Lastly, I'll add to this in the question and comments section for Zoom. Jono stated that he's happy to talk directly with anyone with regards to data. His email address is listed in there, and so is his phone number. All right, moving on from that, brings us to commission actions and agenda item 6.01. First one up is the CSL resolution. And with that, I will give the floor to Co-Chair Stephanie.
There we go. All right. Thank you. So this resolution stems from our last meeting in which DC Lebrecq shared with us some information about CSLs, their efficacy thus far, and the further need for them. And so this resolution was vetted by Lacey as well as Chief Murad and DC Lebrecq. And it is to ask for the City Council's support in funding these 2 additional positions. And just to say, this is really the good timing because the budget is being considered at this point, and this is something then that could be added to the budget. I think that Lacey also made the case for this motion, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions about this. Commissioner Comerford.
Yeah, not a question, but a comment. I think this is really important and incredibly necessary, given the low numbers in the police department, so that the police can do the job they're supposed to be doing. So I support it wholeheartedly.
Shireen?
Yeah, I do as well, and I do support the addition of the request for the position for a public information officer as well. So thank you for adding that.
I don't think it is in the resolution as it stands right now.
Well, I thought you had it in there in the last. Did you change it since what you last sent us?
So I did send an email about this, that there was some concern that we didn't have a position description and there wasn't enough information.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see the updated email on that.
And I will just say that I did forward that City Councilor Karen Paul sent me a draft of that position. And if anyone wants to make a friendly amendment to add that, that would be fine. I would be open to that. If people feel like they need more time to review that information and the draft position, we could take this up next month.
Yeah. So do you feel like I'm sorry, I'm just seeing that email is there. I apologize for not seeing that. If looking at that information from Councillor Paul, you feel like it gives us what we need, then I'd be comfortable making that friendly amendment tonight so we can do this as one, rather than waiting a month.
So you're proposing the friendly amendment. I have forgotten, Haley, on Robert's rules about what happens to a friendly amendment. I know that I would accept that, but does there need to be a second to the motion for a friendly amendment?
So maybe I missed it, but I don't know that I actually heard a formal first motion. So unless I missed that, I think you could just make the motion to pass the resolution with the following additional language. Is there a motion on the floor, or that I missed, or have we just kind of jumped to discussion?
No, in our own informal way, there is a motion on the floor.
There's a second on the floor.
And Susie seconded.
Everyone read it.
So then the question is, do we need, can you just give us, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jabu.
I was just saying, has everyone read that email from Stephanie? If not, I propose maybe like a 3-minute recess. Everyone can read it. You have the date on it. So I have read it, so I'm okay with it. Just for everybody else, that is.
So maybe we can take a sense of the room. Does anybody else need any time to read that?
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. So I'm seeing the first email where we didn't have a description, but I'm not seeing what was forwarded from Karen with a description.
So the email that I'm looking at the email, and actually
she's not on it.
You're not on it, actually. So that is why you didn't get it.
Okay.
So with that, I will forward that to you right now.
Thank you.
I wish I had that excuse. I don't.
You're way too honest for your own good sometimes.
It's embarrassing.
I'm going to just share with you all. I'm going to share with you all what the amended, Shireen's friendly amendment would be based on the earlier version, and it is as follows. And Shannon, don't worry about this. I can email this to you. The commission also urges the city council to support funding for a public information officer for the Burlington Police Department. This is also a recommendation from CNA, who note that increased communication between BPD and the community can help to increase transparency and build trust with the community. That would be the added statement. And I can put that in the chat if that is helpful.
So we at the voting stage now?
Sorry, but I think, let me just,
right, Steph?
So go ahead.
I think someone just has to second adding that to Stephanie's original motion. So mine was to add that extra language. So if someone wants to second it, and if not, then it sounds, okay, great.
Happy to second it.
So it's a friendly amendment. I accept it. It was seconded. I think the question now is do we need, does anybody need a couple of minutes to read that email that gives the job description for the public information officer?
I'm going through it right now. I guess I would say that I don't think there would be any question from anyone that has been listening to me for the last 3 years or so. I am strongly for improvement in community engagement. And I have felt for some time that the department needed assistance with regards to this, especially in light of certain issues with social media and relying so heavily on just press releases. Looking at the essential job functions, I do see I do see some things that are referring to community engagement, but quite frankly, not in strong enough terms. So I actually
I'd like us to move through this expeditiously.
Sure.
So just to clarify, this is a draft job description that has not yet been approved, but there was a request to understand what the position would roughly look like, and that's what you have before you. If there is not enough information on this now to vote on it, then I suggest that we abandon the amendment and vote on the original resolution. But I do want to clarify that the process of determining the job description is something that is yet to be finalized. This is conceptual, and as I said, it's consistent with the CNA report recommendation. So here's what I would like to suggest. I'd like to suggest that I hear from anybody else and that we vote on this motion.
So just to clarify, I would be for voting for the original motion. I guess I would not support the, what do we call it, a friendly amendment to include the PIO position. I would rather us have a final draft of the job description. Thank you.
Chief Murad, am I correct that the final draft wouldn't be developed unless the position was approved?
That is correct.
I'd like to just hear from everybody else. Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. I'd like to hear from everybody else, and we'll figure out how to proceed from there. Susie?
I'd like us to move forward now. And the reason is that we are still in a position as a community where information, positive information from the police is really important. So I would like to go now and just have a vote. Having said that, I also appreciate Commissioner Grant's concerns.
Thanks. Anybody else?
No, I'm in favor of taking the vote as well tonight.
I'll be in favor of voting for this now, seeing how I really can't find any words today. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll be in favor of voting for this now, seeing that the job description will be final. Will be worked on once they approve of creating the job. That aside, my fear is that we can add in better language for community engagement in the future. So with that being said, I'll vote on this now.
Chief Murad, is there a possibility that the commission could weigh in on a job ad once it was, a job description once it was developed?
I don't think there's anything that prohibits it being shared. The job description process is one that generally has any number of cooks in the kitchen, as it were. In this particular instance, some of it went through the mayor's office. It was going through parts of HR, and then it stalled out because that resolution was not accepted. I can't recall if resolution is the exact term, but the mayor's request to the city council was that aspect of it was not accepted. And so inevitably, even had there been an acceptance, there would have been a number of drafts post that, which is why I say that this is not, that you cannot generate a correct draft, a final draft really until you have the authorization, because inevitably there will be additional things that have to go with it, particularly if there are any union implications. This is a non-union position in all likelihood, but there's grading that has to be done by HR. There are other kinds of things. It has to go through legal to make certain that it's being looked at properly, and all of that would occur after the position is budgeted and known.
Commissioner Grant, does that in any way assuage your concerns that there would be an opportunity for input later on?
I would rather have that in the our friendly amendment stating that so that we're not overlooked, because even with this draft, I'm surprised that nobody asked us our opinion in terms of putting, together any draft for this position and how important it is in the community. So I guess I'm looking for some kind of guarantee that we would definitely be that our opinion would be, asked for, because it's such an important, and there's just a couple of things that I'm really concerned with in this particular draft as it stands. I also would add the caveat that when it's presented to the city council, because I actually think there is widespread support, but it needs to be presented as no political games. It needs to be presented as a standalone item. Thank you.
This motion, however it passes with the CSLs or with the public information officer, is something that I would reach out to City Councilor Karen Paul to sponsor at the City Council. And I could certainly share with her that the request that we have input into the final version, should this be budgeted. I think that that's something that we can do, Commissioner Grant. Commissioner Comerford.
I think there are times we're going to disagree with each other, and that's okay. We have a lot of respect for each other's integrity, and sometimes we just, we differ. I don't think it's a bad thing to vote. And I also think that Commissioner Grant's concerns are important, and we can address them, in two ways, through the chief's word, but also through Karen Paul. So I think we can go ahead. I don't think we're, it's not a bad thing to disagree.
Does anybody else have any other input before we vote? Okay, all those in Jabu, I'll leave that to the chair. Jabu.
Oh, that's all good. I'm going to say all in favor of the proposed friendly amendment, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All right. We're going to do a roll call vote because it's not unanimous. I vote in favor of the proposed amendment. Susie? That is a hand in. Sorry, for clarification, that is in support of the proposed amendment. Your hand. Okay. Kevin?
Aye.
Are you
in support?
In support? All right. Shireen, raise your hand and say aye if you are in support of the amendment. Stephanie, raise your hand and say aye if you are in support of the amendment.
Aye.
All right. And Milo, please raise your hand and say aye if you are in support of the amendment. If not, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 1 no. And then I think that moves us to.
Before we go,
sorry.
but can Shannon, can you put in the minutes Milo's concerns and then the 2 steps we're going to follow? Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Grant.
So now we've passed the amendment to the motion. I believe now we vote on the motion as a whole with the amendment. And Haley, correct me if I'm wrong. All right then. So I then propose.
Yeah, sorry. I was just looking for my unmute. I was just going to say, I understood the first motion to be to adopt the resolution as amended. If that was the understanding of the rest of the commissioners, I don't think you need a second vote. But if there's some confusion around that, to actually formally adopt the resolution as amended, a second vote won't hurt. But I think what I heard the first time was to adopt the resolution as amended.
Yes. That's what happened.
Okay, if everyone's cool with that, then I'm cool with not holding another vote. All right, then. I believe that closes out that agenda item. Moves on to agenda item 6.02, which is the CNA Committee updates. I will start off and I'll let Milo fill in all the gaps that I miss. So we have completed sections 1 through 6 of the recommendations. We've gone through part of section 7, and we have the entirety of section 8 and 9 to complete. Section 9 is very short. Section 8 is a bit meatier. But with that being said, though, we're making good progress right now. We have one more meeting left next week, and I think maybe one more after that to summarize the report. I don't believe that'll be ready for us next week, Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. So yeah, once that report comes out, I'll share that with the commission. And yeah, I don't know, Milo, if you have anything else to add?
I know it's long, but I just continue to recommend that when people can make the time to actually read it, because there's a lot of interesting information in it. I do understand that the department doesn't agree with everything that's in it, but the methodology is explained. And I think that, today in particular, we talked a lot about data, right? And there are a lot of things that our officers do that aren't captured. So that definitely needs to be, and we mentioned it in the meeting, a project. How do we do a better job to capture all the things that the officers are actually doing? Something else that continues to trouble me is representative for the business community feeling that they are not part of the community discussions and need to be asked to be part of the community discussions. I think that may be something that we may want to have as a topic for a future meeting, and ask for representatives from the business community to come in and talk about it. I personally know that I've made specific requests of members of the business community to participate in things like what Talitha was doing and other different types of meetings. So I am a little bit concerned specifically for the downtown, because we have businesses all over the city, but specifically the downtown business community. I'm concerned that they have this feeling of isolation from the rest of the city. And I see that sometimes reflected in the community as well. There's a feeling that businesses care more about quote unquote buildings and people, which I don't think is true, but I don't know. I think it's another question, part of community engagement, and it seems to be affecting some of these conversations that we're having. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess for the commission, any questions you guys have for us with regards to the CNA committee?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. I just want to say thank you to both of you. I know how much time you put into this and also how important it is. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. I'm not seeing any further questions or comments on 6.02. So moves on to 6.03, which is an update on the update on policy review and the revision process. This is.
I'm sorry. Please forgive my interruption. Can I go back to the vote for a minute? Because I thought we were voting on the friendly amendment. Do we have to do a vote for the resolution separately?
That was what I asked.
Now we do.
I did.
Well, it sounds like there is, so I'll just
now we do.
jump in. Yeah, it sounds like there was some confusion. So what I was saying before, Commissioner Grant, is that it was my understanding that the vote was on to adopt the resolution as amended with the friendly amendment, but it sounds as though some in the group had the understanding that it was just to continue with the resolution on the floor with the friendly amendment. So since it sounds like there was some confusion on the vote, if you're looking for a recommendation, Chair Gamache, I guess it would be to vote to adopt the resolution as amended with the friendly amendment.
Okay. Stephanie, sorry, hand up there.
Just for everybody's future information, when there's a friendly amendment, it is up to the person making the motion as to whether to accept that friendly amendment or not. And I did accept that. I'm happy to have the vote now, but just for clarity, for the future purposes, that's how friendly amendments work. And okay, so it would be my prerogative as the person who developed the motion to reject the friendly amendment, but just for future reference.
Okay, I was not aware of that because I don't support the amendment, but I do support the resolutions because I strongly support the addition of additional CSLs. So
I guess in that case, then I'd be happy to have a vote on the resolution just so your support can go on record for this resolution.
I would, and I guess I didn't understand because I thought at first we were discussing only the addition of the amendment. So I apologize, that wasn't clear to
Can
me.
we do that?
So,
I'm wondering if we can do that. I mean, because by accepting a friendly amendment, it substantively changes the entire package. And then we voted on the entire package. I don't think we can do that. Can we?
Yes, that's what you do. If the friendly amendment is accepted, that becomes the new motion on the floor.
Exactly.
And then people can reject that and go back to the original motion if there's not support for the amended motion. So that's how the process works. But if we
okay, so because I didn't support the amendment, I go down as a no vote for the
whole motion, right?
The whole motion. Okay, yes. So I guess I'm stuck with that. I can only give my verbal support. I think people know I support CSL positions and have for some time now. Felt the city was moving too slowly on it, but okay, so I guess we'll have to leave it there. Thank you.
With that said, Shannon, could you possibly put like a little note on the minutes, being like just expressing her thank you. All right then. I believe I was at 6.03, update on policy review and revision processes. This is a continuation of this agenda item from last meeting. Where I believe the commission is currently looking at two department directives / policies to update. The first one being persons with diminished capacities and persons with persons with diminished capacities, and the second one being the complaint policy. So I don't know who wants to start on a quick update. I'll let Shireen start with the person with diminished capacities then.
Yeah, and Susie, just feel free to interrupt or tack on. So Susie and I are working on the persons with diminished capacities and persons with disabilities policies. We this month had a couple of meetings that life got in the way for a couple of us and we were not able to meet, but the department did its part, which was to look at the current policies and get us redlined or revised. It took the policies, looked at them as they promised they would to indicate to us how they should change based on current practices. we then reached out to some of the subject matter experts we had identified as folks we'd like to have at the table, or looking at what we're doing. And we are pleased that Disability Rights Vermont will be is happy to be at the table with us, looking over what we're doing and providing some input. So that's where we are. Obviously we didn't get as far as we wished, but we're moving forward.
I would just add a friendly amendment that two of the people that I was trying to track down, one is just retired. That would be from Vermont Family Network, and the gentleman from NFI is in California, working in California. So I took a long time to get them actually to respond, but then I found out why they didn't respond right away, because of those two reasons. So I'm like on the trail now. One subject expert is not enough, so I'm them on the trail looking for a few other characters. We also were able to take the two policies as they stand and transform them into documents we can write on. So we made a little bit of progress for a lot of effort.
Thanks, Susie. I accept that amendment.
Awesome. Thank you for that update. And I guess for the complaint policy,
Kevin, do you want to share what you worked on with regard to the Talitha report? You're muted.
Yeah, so here I go. So yeah, I had help with from Commissioner Hart, and we basically took all the comments, the public comments, and put them on a data sheet, and I went through them all. And my thinking is, with the CNA report and the resolutions that they have, the recommendations, I think that's something that we could focus more of our time on. I thought that some of the comments in the Talitha report, a lot of people were just like confused about the process too. I was seeing like they didn't really know how to address it. So I think with the CNA report, I think those recommendations are something we should focus our attention on moving forward. But I'm open to any suggestions as well.
I would mention that the Talitha report had most of the detail with regards to specific conversations around how the community felt about submitting complaints. So I think we need to lean more heavily on the feedback provided in that report. Another one of the biggest concerns that really stood out to me was, I felt like, this online process is pretty direct. And several people brought up the issue of the lack of multiple languages. So that was an interesting feature. And there were some other things brought up about accessing online as well. So I guess I would recommend leaning more heavily toward the Talitha report. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I went through and I carefully read all the public comments, and even though some of them were, I felt had some some substance there, I strongly believe that the CNA report gives us a better road, to follow. And that's just my thinking, but I'm open to any further suggestions around that, the complaint process. And I did see a lot of people were commenting that they didn't really know how to process that. They didn't know where it was the first time they heard about it. So I think educating the public on that is important too. So yeah, you're right, Commissioner Grant.
Yeah, I think it's really a combination of both, but those type of comments were what Talitha tracked, and were really just exposed some issues with the lack of awareness in the community. Thank you.
So thank you for that. Any questions or comments for the commissioners working on these policies. I'm not seeing or hearing any, which moves on to the amended agenda, which is 6.04, and I believe is the conversation on future vacancies on the commission. Milo, sorry, this is your amendment, so I guess I'll let you start this one off with, I guess, kind of what do you want to hear and what do you want to get at from out of us?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, so this was you had asked to add a discussion on I believe the 4 vacancies coming up on the commission. Who's staying? Who's planning on reapplying and whatnot. So I guess I'll let you steer the conversation. I guess of what you want to get out of what you want for this conversation.
Oh, thank you. I guess I was looking more or less for the timeline for people with expiring positions. I'm not sure what decisions people are making, if they will be submitting to continue or not. But I just wanted to have an idea. So we're at our March meeting. When does the city so the current positions would be, the last meetings would be in June, correct? And then the new positions would start in July. So when would the city be posting? What would be the deadline for the city to post the positions? Would that be April? And then the city council committee selects in May?
I believe, if I recall, I might be wrong, someone can correct me, but I believe last time we did this, the applications were due in mid-May, like May 14th or something like that is what is in my memory. I don't know if that rings a bell. Okay. Yeah. So they'll post them for the 4 positions, no matter what the individuals decide to do, they get posted. And then they will have interviews and a vote.
Susie, I see your hand raised.
I would like to make an impassioned plea, which all of you have heard before, that we try to stay as constant as we can through the next year or two, because there's a lot of change going on. And I think, it takes time for a group to know and trust each other. And even in the last go around, with the amendment, it was apparent to me the integrity and also the caring of the people in this group. We know each other, and we can rely on each other, and we can even disagree with each other, and still be in a relationship of co-workers and colleagues. And so, with all the change that is happening right now, I think it serves us mightily to try to stay steady if we can. So that's my impassioned plea. It's not a golden handshake, and doesn't mean you have to stay forever, but to give us some continuity across time. Otherwise, Kevin and I are going to head for the hills.
I hear you.
So
awesome.
I just have some information. I just have some quick information for the group. So on the city's website, there's postings for all vacancies on boards and commissions. And just for the commission's awareness, to the extent that you're not already, there's a sort of general posting for police commissioner that is up there. There's not a due date that's posted, and there's not a number of vacancies that's posted, but there is a description of the role of a commissioner that's posted there. And there is it seems like it's just a solicitation for rolling, for people to apply on a rolling basis. To the extent that you're not aware and you're interested, it's there on the city's website under boards and commissions.
And thank you for that. So I guess my question is when does that get updated so that interested parties know specific deadlines? Because in the past, there's been confusion about that. So that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. Thank you.
Yeah, and to the extent that's directed at me, Commissioner Grant, I don't know the answer to that question. I think that would probably be best directed to Chief of Staff in the Mayor's office.
Susie, I see your hand. Is your hand still up? New question or new comment, or that's an old hand? Okay, awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. If any commissioners want to speak on, or if any commissioners have like their minds made up on what they want to do in the future, you're welcome to speak now. With that being said, I will not put anybody on the spot. And if you're still undecided, you are still undecided. Sorry, Shannon.
Sorry, Commissioner Grant and the rest of the commissioners, I can reach out to Lori Olberg, who actually is the one that helps, send out applications and receive applications. Last year, they were due by May 14th. That date may be the 14th or 15th or 13th, depending on whatever day that is. I can certainly include in the email the application, and once it's available, I'm not sure, Haley, is the application on the boards and commissions vacancy, or it's just a general posting?
It looks to me just to be a general posting, unless I'm not toggling through to the right screen, but that's what I'm seeing under the boards and commissions. It's just sort of like a general list of vacancies.
I was just looking back last year. It looks like around the mid-April mark is when Lori would release, give me a heads up, like, such and such term is up. Here's, if here's some applications. So I can, Commissioner Grant can send the entire commission the email that has the application and the link so that they can go and, if you know of somebody or someone in the community has expressed interest to you, then you might help forward that on to them if they're interested. And then those will get returned directly to Lori. And then they're interviewed and met with and discussed and then brought before City Council for appointment or approval in June, I believe it is. But I can send a follow-up email so that you'll have that information for anyone maybe that you come across that's interested.
Thank you.
All right. And I guess to this topic, I will say that I will not be reapplying. I have some family things I need to take care of that I cannot discuss right now in a public setting, but I will contact you all in the future and explain to you my decision. But so I guess I'll put that on the record right now, that I will not be reapplying for this position.
You've done this for such a long time, Javalani, and through a huge amount of change and shift. I just want to say thank you for that, for what you've done.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hey, you're not off the hook yet, so don't get too comfortable.
No worries. Still got a long couple months left. Absolutely. Awesome. Shreen.
Yeah, this is the end of my second term, so end of my 6th year. So at this time, I'm not planning to reapply. As much as I would like to, I have really enjoyed working with this group, but I don't think I'm in a position to renew. And I also feel like I really do need to make the way for other folks to be able to sit on the commission.
I wish you stop now. I don't want to have a trend here.
I know, y'all making me sad.
Well, in that case, I will quickly close this agenda item and move on to the next one. So further questions or comments, we shall move on to agenda item 7.01, which is the use of force report for February 2022. And I hope we were all able to review this force report as it came in. I always find it interesting when I read the report. I'm like, I remember that incident happening from my vantage point at work, and this was definitely one of those reports. So with that being said, if there's any of them that you flagged that you'd like to review, I guess please state that now. And if it doesn't come to you right now, please email DC Lebrecht and he'll forward us the corresponding BWC. But yeah, is there any that are sticking out to people right now that they'd like to review?
Please just let me know and I can send those to you.
Awesome. Much appreciated, DC Lebrecht. Thank you. All right. Moving on to agenda item 8, which is commendations. So with that, I give the floor to Shannon.
I do just have one that came in at the end of, it's kind of like on the borderline. It was written at the beginning of the second day of March, but I do believe that maybe perhaps this was a February incident. So I'll check this off the list for now. Received a commendation for several officers, including street outreach and officers. It was in conjunction with the fire department. And it was an appreciation for the professionalism and restraint that the BPD showed on an incident where street outreach was called. Looks like some negotiators were also called on scene from BPD to help the subject that was in their apartment, and the fire department needed to get into the apartment for a water issue, and the person was in crisis and was not was in a mental health crisis, and so they spent a lot of time slowing the incident down, it states, and taking their time in allowing the fire department to eventually get into the apartment. And so there's just an appreciation that the BPD and BFD personnel worked as a strong team, and that both departments listened to each other and collaborated well, and an attempt to make contact with the occupant to help the fire department get inside the apartment. So that is all for that one.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to agenda item 9, Commissioner updates and comments. I'll start this one off. So I believe the city dropped a mask mandate. I'm actually not sure. Wait. The commission meeting, the city council meeting was done in person, I think on Monday. So I believe we are allowed to meet back in person for meetings. As much as I love Zoom, I'd much rather see your beautiful faces in person. So I'd be very happy to move back to in-person meetings. Obviously, that'd be hybrid, so people can Zoom in from wherever, if you're in town or not. But I would like to see us return to in-person meetings. Not sure what everyone else's thoughts on that, and I'm happy to go with the will of the commission on this one. I guess maybe if I could just, if you're for, or if you're against it, I guess I'd like to hear from you. But I'm going to take the silence as okay to meeting back in person moving forward. With that said, I am happy to do executive sessions via Zoom. It can be kind of a big ask to get everyone together 2 nights in a row in the same location. So I'd be very much amenable to keeping executive session via Zoom and moving our regular meetings back to in person.
Actually, can we have hybrid meetings?
Well, I'm sorry. When I say in person, I mean hybrid. As in, like you can zoom in if you'd like, for sure.
Thank you. I'm happy to attend public in person, but I'm thinking that it's having the hybrid meetings is convenient for the public who has the option to listen from home if they can't attend live and participate.
And I did mention before. I did say before that I'd be happy to do hybrid for that very reason. But moving forward, yeah, I'd very much love to be in person with people that can zoom in if they want elsewhere. Susie?
So I'm going to have to be Zoom for health reasons. I'm also remote from work, so I'll be on Zoom.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, I very well may go on Zoom as well. I'm not sure yet. Take it as we go.
All right, sounds good. And I forget how this works under open meeting laws. So, Haley, are we allowed to converse amongst each other for like planning out scheduling meetings without having a meeting to schedule a meeting? That makes sense.
Yes, that's one of those administrative clerical type things, and you're allowed to discuss stuff like that. As long as you don't get into substantive discussions of, hashing out what you're going to talk about at the meeting, it's perfectly fine to chat about scheduling meetings as a group offline.
Sounds good. Seems like we're not at a consensus here, so this portion of the conversation, I'll email y'all, and we'll figure something out. I guess that's it for my personal commissioner updates. If anyone else has anything to add, bring up, comment, questions, whatever, now is the time. I am not seeing or hearing from anyone. So that moves us on to agenda item 10, other business, which is next meeting agenda items. Off the top of my head, I could think of an educational component, I guess another update, hopefully the final update from the CNA report, and share that report with y'all. Policy revision update, and like Shereen.
Yeah, one of the things that I need to do is I said that I would work on the ethics. So forgive me, Susie, what was the document that you found for us that I was gonna, it was like a code of ethics for the commission. So that would be nice if we got through that before June. So my hope is to have a draft circulated to folks before the next meeting.
Thank you.
April, I believe, is also the month that John O'Larson will give us the annual report.
Oh, that's right. Report. And the fourth Tuesday of next month is April 26th. And just moving ahead in the future, the fourth Tuesday of May is the 24th. All right. Any further commissioner comments or updates?
I was wondering if we could, and I don't know if we want to do it as like a little police commission subcommittee, but something we kind of talked about in the past about putting together information for new commissioners. So since it looks like going forward, we will have new commissioners, just, information on, forwarding links on the NACOL training. I still feel I could use, obviously after our vote earlier today, Robert's Rules for Dummies or something like that, but just so where people, they're given information and they're about what we've been discussing, a copy of the CNA report, things like that. I think would warrant discussing so that people who step into the commission aren't immediately overwhelmed or feel really behind in discussions. Thanks.
We've been trying to do that. We've been posting things. Stephanie's been posting things. Sharina's been posting things. So we're trying to get ahead of the game here a little bit. Thank you for that.
I think it, once again, depends upon getting the staff person, because this would be the work of a staff person.
Sorry, continue, Mila.
Oh, my apologies. Didn't mean to speak over you. I was just going to say, if we don't get the staff person in a timely manner, then I would think this would have to fall back on us to somehow put together this information for any new members. Thank you.
I did start drafting kind of like a media policy, which is more or less like how commissioners should like deal with like communicating to each other, press, constituents, yada yada yada. I'd be happy to try to roll in some of those other things that you just brought up there into that. Once I'm done with that, I'll be happy to send it out. I think ideally I could probably get something out to everybody the next week and a half or so. So yeah. I guess that's something like that, and we can either put that in agenda for next month or the one after. Time's running out. Time's coming quickly. I'll see if I can get that done so we can get that on the agenda for next meeting. All right. Any further questions or comments from commissioners? I'm not seeing or hearing any. I guess my last update is that tomorrow night we'll be having executive session. There will be a public portion of that. Meeting starts at 6 o'clock. If anybody in the public would like to comment please check out board docs for our meeting link for tomorrow night. Starts at 6 p.m. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Stephanie, seconded by Kevin. He's first hand us off afterwards. Any questions or comments? Not hearing any. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, raise your hand and say aye.
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 That passes unanimously at 8:59 p.m.